It all starts with a dream, a nice cafe with a table for two. Michael joins Grace, and they get talking. Their conversation reveals that Michael doesn't remember this particular cafe, and it's strange to both of them. Michael knows Grace's name, and not just because it's written on her coffee mug. Grace also knows Michael's name, but not his last name. Just before he can tell her something, her alarm rings, waking her up, his name on her lips. Grace lives with her sister and works at a temp agency that doesn't pay well, but she has aspirations of becoming a successful writer, and the temp agency keeps her afloat somewhat. It also gives her time to write. Grace brings up Michael from her dreams, wanting to know if Becky knows him. She's been dreaming about him for several days now, but sadly, he doesn't ring a bell to Becky. The sisters go out for coffee, and Becky intends to get her sister back into the dating pool, much to Grace's displeasure. The thing is, Grace's mind is still fixed on Michael from her dreams. She wonders where she could have met him, and even as her sister talks, she finds herself subconsciously looking for him among the crowd. Becky infers that Michael might be a figment of her imagination, but Grace disagrees. She believes dreams must come from memories. Dreams are made in an organization called Dream Central. Fred gives recruits a tour of the place. He introduces Marge, who works in the resource center. Grace was right. Dreams do come from memories. Fred explains that every single moment of every person on Earth is sent and stored in the library. He elaborates that dreamweavers can create dreams from any range of memories of a person. However, there is one rule they should always follow. Dreams can only and solely be created by a subject's memories. New elements can't be introduced. Allura is the dreamweaver behind Grace's dreams. She's a dedicated and passionate worker, the type that has her supervisor, Harvey, begging her to slow down. Regardless, she has to stay on top of her game, as her first review by the Dream Council is coming up soon. Meanwhile, Grace is having a tough day. Her new place of work has her doing hard labor, and there's still no breakthrough concerning her manuscript. It's been a month since she submitted her work, but Benedict from the literacy agency promises to keep in touch. Becky set Grace up on a blind date with a guy named John. While he's droning on about his investment plan, Grace eyes a couple that seem to be having the time of their lives. She does manage to engage in conversation with John. He's not thrilled about her writing ambitions, preferring a more practical career. When Grace goes to bed that night, she has a dream where she's the star of the night in a dazzling red dress. She ditches John to sit with Michael at the bar. The restaurant suddenly has a ballroom, and they grace the dance floor. They still don't know where they've met before in real life, but their bond in the dream world has grown strong, and Grace is eager to know what Michael's last name is, so she can find him in the real world. He tries to tell, but it's a scramble of words, and then her alarm jolts her. Her time at work hasn't gotten any easier, and at the end of the night, she's cranky. She tells Becky that she's dreamt about Michael yet again, and he's literally become the man of her dreams. There's a possibility he's real because he even told her his last name. It's Michael Roy. He's a struggling musician who is also assigned to Allura. Allura realizes there's been a mix-up in the tapes. She's been feeding Michael's memories to Grace. She quickly finds Harvey to tell him. Meanwhile, Benedict gets back to Grace with sad news. Every publishing agency turned down her book. Benedict's word of advice is that Grace has an adventure that could spice up her writing. She's a safe writer, but publishers are looking for daring stories. All she's ever wanted to be is a writer, Grace tells Becky later that night. The idea was to chase that dream for 3 years, but Becky reminds Grace it's been 4 years already. She feels it's time for Grace to get more realistic, and manages to convince her that she's hung up on a figment of her imagination when real-life adventures are waiting. Grace dozes off while watching a movie, and she expects this dream to have Michael in it, but Michael is missing, and these two new characters know about him. They take her to Dream Central where Harvey explains how it works. He tells Grace that Allura made a mistake, and Grace is momentarily elated that Michael is real. Harvey ruins the moment by explaining Grace has to lose her memories of Michael because she's never met him, so she isn't supposed to know him. She has to willingly agree to sign the terms, so her memories can be tampered with. Before they can convince her, Becky stirs Grace awake. Grace searches for Michael online with the extra details she learned from Harvey, and finds him. She goes to Joey's tavern after work, arriving just in time to see Michael perform. When he's done, she approaches him but realizes that he doesn't know her. Shattered, she takes off and ends up in a diner. Michael arrives, warm and engaging upon seeing her again. They sit at the same table and start talking. Harvey and Allura still need that term signed. They arrive in the real world, and the mission is to fix Allura's mistake. Meanwhile, Grace and Michael are getting to know each other. Now he knows she works for a temp agency, and she wants to become a writer. She tells him their earlier encounter was a case of mistaken identity, and Michael admits she looks familiar. The waiter suggests they continue their evening by heading to a nearby street fair together. Harvey and Allura find Grace at her place, but she's not in, nor does Becky know where she's currently at. They don't leave a name or address for Becky to hold on to when Grace returns. Allura's performance review is in a few days, meaning they have a little time to find Grace. Harvey deduces that she must have gone searching for Michael, and if she finds him, it will make their mission even more challenging. While Grace and Michael are enjoying the fair, Harvey and Allura have made it to the diner. Harvey has a picture of Grace and gets the waiter to admit that Grace and Michael are at the street fair. Grace realized she was a good storyteller at age 12, while Michael started pursuing music at 15. He's from Portland and has a train to catch soon. Becky calls Grace and informs her that two strange people came looking for her earlier. At the train station, Michael decides the night shouldn't end with them parting ways. He gives Grace several reasons to take the train with him, and whatever doubts she has goes out the window when she sees Harvey and Allura approaching. Grace and Michael have a head start, getting away before Allura can confront them. Grace texts both her grandmother and Becky about her whereabouts. Nana lives in Portland. Michael admits he's giving up his dream to work for his father. Music might be his passion, but it's not a practical career, and he can only fight his father for so long. Michael's story gets Grace to share her disappointments, but she's not willing or ready to stop chasing what she wants. Just before Michael calls it a night, he tells Grace that he never remembers his dreams. Harvey and Allura have to change their course of action. Harvey reaches out to Fred and requests for Grace's last 24 hours so he can track her down. At this point, they're breaking a lot of rules, but it's the only way to stop the situation from escalating into something worse. Grace and Michael are in a transit town. Fred successfully steals the tape but almost gets caught by Marge. The tape reveals that they're in Montana. Allura watches the tape with a sense of admiration for the rogue lovebirds. Michael is glad he met Grace. She helps him find the words. It's the same line he once said to her in one of their many dreams together. He likes the line and writes it down. He has an unfinished song, and Grace would love to hear him play. She suggests that the line she just said would make an excellent addition to his lyrics. They get ice cream and Grace wants to explain the dream fiasco to Michael, so he stops thinking their meeting is a case of mistaken identity. However, rain interrupts and they run to seek shelter. Under a tree, they share a magic moment. Allura watches from a distance, too conflicted to interrupt their building romance. It stopped raining by the time they pull apart. Grace picks up a gift at the thrift shop and hands it to Michael when they're on their connecting train. It's a necklace with a quote about music and Michael loves it. He asks her about what she wanted to say earlier, before the rain interrupted, but Grace brushes it off. According to Harvey, letting Grace keep her memories of Michael is not an option. He can see she's starting to get cold feet and wants her to stay focused. Grace and Michael are still waxing strong, talking about dinner and sharing a kiss. She catches up with her grandmother, gushing about the adventure she's had with Michael. Nana encourages Grace to keep going. Unlike Becky, Nana is supportive, and even points out that Grace's latest adventure should motivate her. Grace has been working on a new story, and Nana gives her space to keep writing, ready to read it when she's done. On the other hand, Michael's dad is glad to have Michael back. He assures a reluctant Michael that he'll get used to the business in time. Allura finds Grace and convinces her to come with her. She's on Grace's side now, and they need to work together to outsmart Harvey. Allura doesn't have much of a plan, and Grace doesn't understand why the Dreamweaver have switched sides. Allura admits Grace was her first assignment. She felt a connection to Grace while watching her tapes, and it helped her weave good dreams, Grace can attest. Trying to fix her mistake has opened her to a world she's been experiencing through people's memories. Grace is happy to have Allura as her Dreamweaver. She's creative, and makes each bed rest worth it. Grace forgets about her date with Michael. While he's worried and wondering, she's assuring Allura that there's no bad blood between them. Harvey finds them and explains why taking away her memories is so important. Michael has a successful music career ahead of him, but fate has a role to play. If Grace keeps her memories of him, then his future becomes more of a probability than an assurance. On hearing this, Grace agrees to have her memories taken against Allura's protest. If she goes down this path, she may never see Michael again. Michael sees Grace on the street, but she's different. She doesn't remember him. When Grace leaves, Allura calls Michael's attention, wanting to clarify what has just happened. Allura returns to Harvey, who explains that they've done a good job, and the right people will find their way to each other. Grace returns home to Kalamazoo with a new manuscript and a greater zeal to become a successful writer. Michael still has Grace's gift to him, and Allura gets a good review back at the Dream Council. 1 month later, Benedict calls with great news. A publisher has taken an interest in Grace's manuscript. Allura is at work reviewing files when she realizes that Michael and Grace are in the same place. She quickly requests Grace's latest memories and plays the tape on her monitor. Grace and Becky are out celebrating, but Grace still feels unfulfilled. Michael Roy performs his now finished song at the joint, and it captures Grace's attention. He keeps his gaze on her while he sings. Later, he approaches the bar where Grace is seated, and she gathers the courage to speak to him. It feels like fate, and at the last moment, Michael decides not to walk away from it. Harvey was right, and Allura sees it now. What is meant to be, will be.